We have all not only heard of tyrants but have also encountered true tyrants in our lives. Many believe that a tyrant is an embodiment of evil, bringing pain, fear, and suffering into one's existence. All of this is undoubtedly true, but only for the ordinary man, not for the sorcerer. Strangely enough, when engaging in battle with a tyrant, the sorcerer does not feel fear or hatred, but rather enjoyment and happiness. You may say, this is fiction. We say, this is a fact, verified countless times. Stay with us and make yourselves comfortable. In just a few moments, this fact will become part of your own life as well. The mistake average men make in confronting petty tyrants is not to have a strategy to fall back on. Warriors, on the other hand, not only have a well thought out strategy, but are free from self-importance. It may seem strange to you, but tyranny is one of the most common forms of interaction between people. Manipulation, aggression, anger, insults, coercion, all of these are merely fragments of the tyranny that human beings encounter. The behavioral model of the tyrant did not become widespread only in modern times, when it seems that the world has been blinded by hatred, lawlessness, and malice. No, it took root long ago, far before our age. One of the most striking examples in the long lineage of tyrants is the conquistadors, those who seized Mesoamerica and turned its captured inhabitants into slaves. But in that distant time of the conquistador tyrants, something occurred that radically changed the lives of not only those born in the centuries that followed, but also ours. We who live in the 21st century still feel its positive influence. Many indigenous people, faced with the tyranny of the invaders, quickly realized that tyrants brought fear and aggression into their lives, turning them into victims. Those who merely tried to flee and hide often ended up as powerless slaves or were simply wiped out. Clearly, such a course of action offered little chance of survival, let alone freedom. Yet among the many, a few began to ask themselves questions like, could it be that the stance of a victim is a mistake? Is it possible, these few wondered, that with tyranny comes not just suffering, but also a hidden opportunity, perhaps even fortune? Such thoughts may seem absurd, even reckless, may not they? But let's not rush to conclusions, my friends. Let us reveal a secret to you. These few indigenous people were called sorcerers. Enduring an unbearable and arduous life side by side with formidable tyrants, the sorcerers developed a unique perception of reality, one that differed greatly from the way ordinary people, both indigenous and otherwise, saw the world. The sorcerers came to a striking conclusion. Encountering a tyrant in one's life was a gift of fate, and rather than resisting with fear or suffering, one should experience enjoyment, even happiness, in facing such an adversary. But it was not because sorcerers sought out suffering, quite the opposite. These rare individuals did not suffer at all in the presence of tyrants, for they possessed a certain hidden knowledge, passed down through generations. This is why they called themselves men of knowledge. At this point in our tale, my friends, be mindful of your judgments and cautious with your imagination. The sorcerers we speak of have nothing in common with the ridiculous notions of magic and magicians spread by the media and dubious television shows. A sorcerer is not a mere illusionist, but a being with a vastly broader and deeper perception of reality than the ordinary person, who remains confined by the concerns of everyday life. This extraordinary perception is made possible by an abundance of energy, a reservoir of power far greater than that of the average man. Remember this well, friends, for we shall return to it soon. One of those who openly wrote about the men of knowledge and their way of thinking was Carlos Castaneda. The best-selling author of books on the magical traditions of the Toltecs indigenous people, began his journey as an inexperienced writer, only to later become one of the men of knowledge himself, thanks to his teacher, Don Juan. According to Castaneda, The knowledge of sorcerers can help anyone develop a strategy and triumph over any tyrant. Unlike the ordinary person, who typically has no strategy at all and succumbs to despair, fear, and ultimately victimhood, the sorcerer follows a precise and effective strategy, one that ensures victory over the tyrant. Do not worry if you still do not fully understand what strategy we are referring to, or at what point in the battle with the tyrant one should feel enjoyment and happiness. We will introduce you to the strategy for overcoming a tyrant in just a few minutes. First, however, it is essential to set aside skepticism and disbelief and attempt to see the world through the eyes of the men of knowledge, or, to put it another way, to see the world magically. The men of knowledge are certain that a true and complete victory over a tyrant cannot be achieved from the ordinary level of perception, but only from a magical one. Therefore, in the struggle against a tyrant, it is absolutely necessary to perceive what is happening magically. They prove that even the worst tyrants can bring delight, provided of course that one is a warrior. To develop magical vision, one must take 2 steps toward magic. The first step is to accept 2 magical truths which serve as the foundation for every man of knowledge when facing a tyrant. Magical truth number 1: an ordinary person does not lose to a tyrant because the tyrant exhausts them, but because they enter the battle already exhausted. Magical truth number 2: the ultimate goal of interacting with a tyrant is not to defeat the tyrant per se, but to defeat one's sense of self-importance. A sorcerer uses the tyrant to battle their own self-importance, whereas an ordinary person fights the tyrant and in doing so loses to their own self-importance. These 2 magical truths reveal that the source of human suffering and failure in the face of tyranny does not lie in the external world, but in the inner state of the individual. From the very beginning of conscious life, a person nurtures a sense of self-importance, unknowingly depleting almost all of their energy in maintaining it, leaving too little for what is truly necessary to survive and thrive. Self-importance is a deeply embedded mechanism of self-exhaustion and a dangerous form of internal manipulation. Recognizing it within oneself is one of the most difficult challenges any individual can face. The sorcerer's logic, however, is simple and pragmatic. They came to a profound conclusion. To restore energy, one must first rid themselves of self-importance. This is why the men of knowledge, upon encountering a tyrant, see them as an opportunity, a stroke of fortune that will expose the hidden imperfections within their being. And this is precisely why the men of knowledge feel enjoyment and happiness whenever they meet a tyrant on this earth. The second step toward magic is to embrace the magical strategy for overcoming tyrants. However, in order to use this strategy effectively, it is essential to understand how magic divides and classifies tyrants. Magical knowledge teaches that there is the tyrant, the true ruler of the universe, and the primary source of energy, against which all earthly tyrants are mere pathetic imitations. This tyrant takes away human consciousness after death. Earthly tyrants or petty tyrants are divided into 2 categories: little petty tyrants and small fry petty tyrants, or teensy-weensy petty tyrants. Little petty tyrants can pursue a person and drive them into poverty. This category is further subdivided into 4 subtypes. The first type torments the person through cruelty and violence. The second type creates an unbearable atmosphere of uncertainty and constant fear through cunning. The third type presses on the person's sense of pity and terrorizes them through their own suffering. The fourth type drives the person to sheer rage. Small fry petty tyrants, on the other hand, constantly irritate and annoy the person with their actions and behavior. Write in the comments, friends, what type of tyrants you have encountered in your own life. Without self-importance, we are invulnerable. So, the magical strategy for overcoming a petty tyrant and the sense of self-importance consists of 5 elements, known as the attributes of the life of a man of knowledge. These are control, discipline, endurance, timing, and will. Men of knowledge say that the most challenging attribute to master is will, as it belongs to the realm of the unknown or the Nagual. The other 4 attributes belong to the realm of the known, the tonal, and are therefore more comprehensible to an ordinary person. That is why, to defeat a tyrant, the first attributes to be engaged are control, endurance, discipline, and timing. Now, we will briefly but concisely reveal the essence of these attributes. If you want us to convey the meaning of each aspect of this strategy in the deepest and most accessible way, let us know in the comments. We will create a separate video for each magical attribute. The first magical attribute, control. Control is the ability to temper your spirit when you are being trampled and oppressed. Sorcerers believe that the source of a person's power is a self-aware, immortal structure that breathes life into them and represents their true or higher self. They call this structure the spirit. Think back. What were the strongest emotions you experienced during prolonged interactions with a tyrant? Here's a hint. Most likely they were feelings of despair, oppression, loneliness, and even betrayal. Connecting with the spirit frees you from these feelings. To temper your spirit means to feel the support of the spirit, to sense the power of your higher self. Men of knowledge say that the spirit support in the form of power is always present in a person's life, regardless of circumstances, even under tyranny. When facing a tyrant, try to stop your habitual perception of the situation and feel that the spirit has not abandoned you to fate, that you are not alone. Power is always with you, wherever you are and whatever happens to you. No matter how difficult it gets, you must shift your focus away from external weakness and toward inner power by sensing the support of the spirit, which is always present. Doing this in moments of oppression and hardship is what it means to develop control. To help you cultivate control and strengthen your connection with the spirit, we have made a special practice available in our 3 Sons community. The link to it will be provided in the video description. The next magical attribute, discipline. Discipline is the ability to learn and gather the necessary information while being constantly under pressure. To defeat a tyrant, one must engage in continuous learning. First and foremost, it is essential to learn to see and perceive the situation from a magical perspective, gradually moving away from the habitual perception of being a victim. Remember, a situation cannot be resolved using the same worldview that caused it in the first place. Pause the video for a few moments and reflect on this. The deeper your perception of the world, the better you recognize the connections between things and the more control you have over any scenario unfolding in your life. To learn to see the world in a new way while being under pressure, this is discipline. The petty tyrant arrives bearing gifts, though unaware of them. The greatest gift a tyrant gives a person is the challenge to rid themselves of self-importance and to renew their sense of wonder about the world. The third attribute of a sorcerer's life that enables them to overcome a tyrant is forbearance. Forbearance means having the patience and calmness to wait for what must come to pass. However, forbearance is not a lack of will or submissive obedience. By practicing discipline and control, a person of knowledge accumulates the energy of trust, flowing from the spirit. Through this trust, you will come to feel that the spirit always accompanies you and teaches you a great magical truth. What is meant to come will inevitably find the one who deserves it. This means that in your confrontation with a tyrant through magical strategy, power will enter your life. The tyrant, blinded by their own grandeur, has already fallen into a trap from which there is no escape. Everyone receives exactly what they strive for. To see and accept this truth is the essence of forbearance. The fourth attribute of a man of knowledge is timing. At its core, the timing is the ability to precisely determine the moment when necessary action must be taken, when the situation can unfold due to your decisiveness and confidence in success. This means that when engaging with a tyrant, you must be filled with the understanding that everything has its time. There is a time for waiting and a time for precise, resolute action. Timing is the ability to see that everything moves in accordance with the laws of nature. You must embrace faith in change and release both the feeling of despair and the illusion of permanence. Everything moves, shifts, and eventually passes, including your struggle with the tyrant. This knowledge will set you free. The ability to wait when necessary and to act when the moment demands it, that is the essence of timing. A tyrant is always a magical challenge. People are conditioned to perceive this challenge as a threat. When facing a threat, a person is already weakened by their sense of self-importance. This is precisely why they lose the battle for their own freedom against a petty tyrant. But the magical truth teaches us that in reality the tyrant is part of a precise and effective strategy, one that allows a person to permanently rid themselves of the only true tyrant that has pursued them all their life, no matter where they are. This true tyrant is a sense of self-importance. By using the strategy for overcoming the tyrant, sorcerers experience enjoyment and happiness, for they see in their life a chance to break free from self-importance. We invite you to apply this strategy, which is now open to you. Do not fight the tyrant, fight your sense of self-importance. Defeat it once and for all. In doing so, you will gain true freedom and become untouchable to any tyrant in this world or any other.